This week on Sib Riv. Now, one of the things I don't like about using public restrooms is I get a little bit of performance anxiety. A guy walks in and he goes to the bathroom and he's like stomping around. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm finally like, hey, Bing Crosby, what are you doing? And he goes, huh? I'm like, stop tap dancing around the urinal. Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of Sib Riv, the podcast where my older brother treats our show as his own personal karaoke lounge. My name's Dana, and I'm joined here by my brother and sister, Dave and Michelle.
Hello.
Hey.
How you two doing this fine, well, Saturday for us, it'll be Monday for everybody else.
Yeah. Good. I had breakfast with Auntie today. She sends loves, hugs, and kisses to you both.
Excellent. How about you, Dave?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Not much to report.
Okay, so slight programming note for today's show. Last week we talked about doing the hot takes. There's probably going to be some hot takes today, but we're not going to do that today because there was something that happened to me that got me thinking, and I was like, oh, this could be a good topic of conversation. So we're going to switch the programming notes today. Today we're going to talk about service and retail work, because there was something that happened to me this week that had me thinking about it, and I thought it would be a good thing for us to talk about. Shout out to all the service workers and retail workers out there, and let them all know that they've been seen. But before we do that, there is something I have to get off my chest. There is something that happened to me earlier this week, and I thought, what a better place to talk about it than with my brother and sister.
Try not to let your brain
Come
short
on.
circuit. It's time
Hands off.
for Dana's Rant of the Week.
Okay, so now I know you guys don't really want to get into politics, and this is probably going to be pretty controversial, but I have to say it, and I don't know how you two feel about going number 2 in public and using public restrooms for poop, but I personally I tend to be more of a home pooper for numerous reasons. I like the comfort of my own home. We have a bidet, which makes you feel very clean. Once you've gone to a bidet, you don't want to go back. So going in public often leads to feeling very, not very clean, and makes you realize how much other people are savages for not using bidets. So get one if you don't have one. It will change your life. That said, under the direst of circumstances, sometimes I may have to use a public restroom. And that happened to me earlier this week. Now, one of the things I don't like about using public restrooms is I get a little bit of performance anxiety. You know, you're nothing but these little thin steel or wood walls, depending on where you're going, between you and people next to you. Thankfully, this was like 7:30 in the morning in a Target, and the McDonald's breakfast I had just eaten like a half hour before hit me all at once, and I just had to go. So I rushed to the bathroom, and I go into the stall, and I build my little nest around the toilet seat, and I'm ready for business. And all of a sudden, like 50 people decide they're going to come into the bathroom all at once. Well, not all at once, but one after another. And I'm like, come on, it's 7:30 in the morning. Where are all these dudes coming from? So, whatever, that would be fine, except they all chose the urinal right next to the stall that I'm sitting in. And so I'm just watching feet after feet after feet come in. You know, one guy's in there whistling while he pees, and another guy's in there moaning while he's going to the bathroom. I'm like, what is this guy doing? I mean, and like I said, performance anxiety. So now this, what should have been like a 2 or 3 minute little thing, I can't go. I'm sitting there, I'm all anxious. I don't want to go. I don't want to stink it up for everybody. And person after person after person's coming in, and I'm like, these people have no etiquette. Why are they coming to this very urinal right next to me? Can't they see me in here? And but I had it. I had it. A guy walks in. He's in like dress shoes or something, right? And he goes to the bathroom, and he's like stomping around the urinal next to me, just stomping around. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And he's going. I can hear the pee go, but he's stomping his feet around the urinal. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm finally like, hey, Bing Crosby, what are you doing? And he goes, huh? I'm like, stop tap dancing around the urinal.
did not say
And he's like,
something.
"Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, I couldn't take it anymore.
Oh my.
Yeah, so that's my rant. Why are people coming into the bathroom at Target at 7:30 in the morning just to annoy me while I'm trying to do number 2?
I will tell you
Why?
why. I'll tell you why.
Why?
You were probably there closer to 8 or 8:30. And the early morning team takes their break at that time. So all the truck unloaders and all that, they are probably like, oh, break time,
Break
gotta
time.
go.
Okay, so I got some things to say about this topic. So first of all, Dana, don't ever fly into SeaTac. Don't ever fly into the Seattle airport because the men's rooms, they have tons of bathrooms, but every single one, I think I posted on Facebook once that I thought I was being followed around by a Quiet Skies person, so I made it a point to walk through all the terminals and stop in every single bathroom to pee. Every single men's room has like 2 urinals and 2 stalls, and that's it. And SeaTac is a busy, busy airport. So there's never a free stall if you're ever in a pinch. No pun intended, right? However, I have to tell you, if you have anxiety about pooping in public, there is a promised land. There's several promised lands, and you need to travel in Southeast Asia because every airport I've been to, so at Singapore, in Taiwan, and in Korea, the stalls are like little closets. There's no space between like the floor and it's like closed in. It's got a nice heavy door. They all have bidets. They have heated toilet seats where you can you have controls next to you. It looks like a computer bank almost. And you can, so I'm just saying, I also have like anxiety about going number 2 in public, but when I'm at the airport at one of those Southeast Asian airports, and even in Vietnam, they don't have the bidet or anything, but the stalls, there's only like maybe a couple inches between the floor and so you don't feel like you're pooping like in an exposed environment.
Yeah. With people tap dancing all around your stall.
I've never
I
had
was
people
getting so
tap
angry.
dance.
I mean, the whistling, the moaning, the tap dancing, it was really grating on me. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. All right. Well,
Hold on. You said you didn't want to get political. How is this political?
This is not where I thought you were going to go
It was a
with
non
what has
sequitur.
happened
I was
this
just
week.
using a non sequitur. I thought it would be funny. I'm sure there's lots of people that have the same performance anxiety when it comes to going to the bathroom in public. So
Yeah, I don't think anyone prefers to do it in public.
And
but,
I'm almost
sometimes
positive
it happens.
if anyone saw the parade of gentlemen that were coming into the urinal and choosing that one urinal when they had 4 to pick from and picking that one, they probably would have had the same reaction eventually.
Well, isn't there like a rule in the men's room that like you have to go every other urinal? So maybe someone was at the other one and they had to use
I don't know.
that one
It's-
next to the stall.
It is an unspoken etiquette, yes.
Yes. So I've been told.
Well, with that being done, let's talk about service and retail work since we're on the subject. So what got me thinking about this, well, speaking of Target, actually this was a Shaw's order. I had something happen to me this week, and it got me really thinking about what the public thinks about service workers, what they expect from service workers, what we expect. So, long story short, one of the things I do is like DoorDash, Grubhub, shop and delivers for Shipped, which is mainly Target orders, but they do other stuff too. And one of the deliveries I had this week, I did a shop and deliver from Shaw's. It was a pretty big order. It went to this lady's house, apartment, I should say. She lives on the 2nd floor. Her notes said in the thing, please call me or ring the bell so you can bring up to the 2nd floor. I'll buzz you in. Based on the notes, I got the impression that people probably just leave her stuff in the lobby or outside the door, and they don't usually bring it up. So she had like a few waters. I don't really do. I don't do too much as far as what I would consider above and beyond. I give like solid, decent service to people. I communicate. I let them know if things are out of stock. I send them pictures of what they can replace. One thing I do that most drivers probably don't do is I like seal my bags and stuff like that. It helps keep like cold food cold, warm food warm, helps keep things organized. So, I bring our stuff up to I get to the apartment and there's a guy coming out. He lets me in. I go up to her door. I start bringing stuff up. It takes me like 3 trips. On the 3rd trip, she comes out and she goes, "Oh, how did you get in?" I said, "Oh, so, one of the neighbors let me in." So I dropped it, took my picture, and I left. And then she sent me this message like a few minutes later as I was like leaving. And she said, "I had an extra tip. You were early. You brought the groceries to my door, and everything was what I wanted expected. Thank you so much." Now, she had already tipped like $10 on this. It was already a pretty decent tip. And then she added like another $16 on top of it. So I was like, so what had me thinking was like, where are we now as a society that people are getting such bad service that they feel compelled to add more just because they get good service? That was kind of like the thought in my head, like, because I definitely know I've seen like a decrease in the level of service people provide when I go out to stores, restaurants, quick service, whatever. There's definitely lacking in service. And even in like other drivers and stuff I encounter, I know, especially for DoorDash, they're notorious for not having the best, most friendly. They typically tend to be like rude a lot of times. They drag their feet. They don't get from point A to point B very quick. They take their time. They steal food. I mean, DoorDash drivers are notorious for not being that great. So where are we? How did we get to this point? Basically is what I was asking myself. So for you two, I'm curious, for first question, service expectations. When you go in as a customer and you're going into like a restaurant setting, what are your expectations of the employee, the waiter or the waitress that's providing you service?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
I feel like I kind of have a list. I want to be greeted in some way. "Hey, how are you? Hey, I'll be right with you. How you doing tonight?" I want some sort of greeting. When we get to the table, even if they're busy and they can't get to us right away, I still want just the acknowledgement of like, "Hey, I see that you're here. I'll be with you in a minute." Because again, we were all in the restaurant business. I understand that sometimes you just need a minute to like clear a table and then get to your next one. So that stuff doesn't bother me as long as they have acknowledged that we're there. Um, and well, that's just the start of like my restaurant experience. Then throughout the meal, I want at least one check-in when the food comes out for either like, did I forget a dressing or a sauce or something? Do you need a drink refill? How is everything? Because then that just gives you a minute to be like, "Oh, like this, I actually asked for, I don't know, a burger and you got me chicken," or so,
Yeah.
it gives you a chance to kind of correct whatever might be mistaken. And if everything's great, then perfect. And then I always want to be asked if we want dessert, and I want dirty dishes taken off. Other than that, I don't really care if you ever come to the table again. I just don't want to be sitting in front of dirty dishes, and I don't want to have to ask for a refill. Like, I don't want to have to find you because then I feel like I'm bothering. That's where I'm at.
How about you, Dave?
My expectations are very low. Just, say hello, ask me what I want, bring it out, maybe do one more, swing by just to see how everything is, which, like the typical, like what I think most servers do. They come by and they're like, "How is everything? Is there anything you need?" And that's really it. I don't really need to be given that many opportunities to like correct things. I'm one of those people that even if something is off about the meal, unless it's like really bad, like if I ordered something and it was like raw,
Like
or not
chicken?
fully like chicken, right? Like there was one time where I got some mozzarella sticks at a restaurant and they were like frozen in the middle. They were like fried on the outside, but like, I mean, like hard frozen in the middle. So I was like, I hate to complain, but can I like get a replacement or whatever? But usually, I don't like to complain about stuff. I strongly believe you don't F with people that prepare your food.
I agree with that.
So sometimes if I'll just take the L, but as far as service goes, really just, the hello, don't be a total jerk, ask, like take the order, and maybe like come by once or twice just to see how everything is. And that's pretty much all I care about.
And it's crazy because I've seen people even struggle with that very baseline level of service over the past several years. I as well have a pretty low bar as far as what I would consider satisfactory service. I do have some expectations when I'm going out to eat because you are paying a premium to go out and sit down at a restaurant and be served. Like you're paying more than you would if you went to a quick service restaurant, for example. So I do have some level expectation. I'm always going to tip appropriately. We'll talk about tipping after, but yeah, keys for me are like be friendly, acknowledge me when I walk in. Mason and I went out to dinner like last year. We went out, I forget what we went somewhere. Then we went out to dinner after, and we went into a Fridays, and we waited for it wasn't very busy. We waited for like 10 minutes just for the host to acknowledge us. So already off the bat, I was kind of a little upset. Then we finally got seated after 10 minutes of waiting for the host to acknowledge us, and we got seated and we sat, and no one acknowledged us when we got sat at our table, and we waited about 15 minutes, and I said, all right, we're leaving. And then we went and ate a Qdoba. Because I at least want to be acknowledged even if you can't get to me right away. But the restaurant was empty. There was 3 people in the restaurant, 3 other customers in the restaurant, and there was 4 waiters on. So acknowledge me, be friendly. You don't be rude, be friendly. Hopefully you bring what I asked for, and hopefully it's good, but I'm not too much of a complainer. And then there's perks. I mean, if you come around for drinks and I don't have to ask you, you're definitely getting more of a tip from me. You're already going to get a good tip from me, but you're going to get more of a tip from me if you come around with drinks and I don't have to ask and I don't have to chase you down.
Well, your big thing is coffee, right?
Coffee and breakfast.
Like the refills.
If I go out to breakfast,
yeah.
Coffee refills, keep that coffee flowing. I really hate I hate sitting with an empty coffee cup after I finished it and we haven't even gotten our food yet and no one comes around with more coffee. That really, that grinds on me because it's a breakfast place. You should, keep the coffee going, right? So that was for restaurant. How about when you go to a store, like a grocery store, a Walmart, or a Home Depot? Or like any other big box store? What do you expect for service from the people that work there?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I could care less if anyone that works there says anything to me. If I'm just shopping, if they make eye contact or say hey, how you doing as we cross paths, it's fine. I'm not oh my God, don't talk to me. But I don't expect anything when I go in.
Even if you're looking for something and you can't find it?
No, because I'll just go and find someone and say, I need help finding this. Can you help me? Or is there someone working in this department? Something like that. But and that could be because of where Mike and I have worked. We kind of have an idea of where everything is, like Target, Lowe's, we have a general idea of what aisle it's going to be in anyway. But yeah, most of the time I don't need anything. The only thing I expect in a retail setting is the cashier, again, to say, hey, how you doing? Or at least hello. Because I hate when I get up to a cashier line and nothing is said to me. I just think it's so awkward. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then when I walk away and if Mike and I are together, I'll be like, how are you? Oh, good. Hey, how are you? Good. Thanks for asking. I make a thing between him and I about it. But I just want them to say, hey, how you doing? Have a good one. We don't need to chit chat. It's great if we do chit chat. I don't mind a little bit of chit chat. But as far as people on the floor, I don't care if they say or even look at me.
How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I'm the same way. And, I think every time I've needed to ask a passing employee at Walmart or Home Depot, hey, do you know where I can find this? They always are able to point me in the right direction. So it doesn't matter. It is very awkward if the person at the register just does not say hello.
Yeah.
Especially if I mean, there's been a couple times where I will say hello first, hey, good morning or whatever. And they just don't respond. And I'm okay, this is awkward. But I've only ever had one really bad experience with a person at the register in a grocery store. And that was the person in front of me. They put the little divider on the conveyor, right? So I started putting my stuff on. And the girl at the register, before she finished ringing up the person in front of me, she took the divider away. And then afterwards got angry at me for not having a divider there. She's like, well, it would have been easier for me to know that, these were separate if the divider was there. And I was like, you actually removed it. And she just gave me this look, and I'm like, the woman you just rang up put the divider down. I put my stuff on. While you were talking to that previous customer, you pulled it off and slid it down the thing.
You couldn't let that one go.
I couldn't let that one go.
The other thing I don't like about going up to a cashier is if they are having a conversation with another employee and like they are ignoring the customer. And it's not just me. I don't like it when I see it anyway. When they have a customer in front of them, but they're like chit-chatting with their coworker or a friend that has come to see them and has still not acknowledged the customer in front of them. I don't know if that's because of a manager standpoint. Like I was looking at that, as a front end person. So I don't know if that's why that bothers me more than normal, but yeah, I don't like that either.
It is funny how being in management kind of colors your vision of how the interactions should go. Because I spent years in restaurant management, so and a little to a point, a little bit in retail management as well. So I always am gauging my interactions through that lens of a manager. If this person was working for me, how would I expect them to treat the customers?
I will say, being a manager, when I do get like great service, like I remember way back, Bed Bath and Beyond, Mike and I were registering for our wedding. We had the best person. She walked us through. She was super friendly, very engaging, was like, oh my God, your bathroom, everyone's bathroom is beach. You got to make sure you get the beach stuff for your bathroom, blah, blah, blah. She was excellent. Her name was Ashley. Actually, I'll never forget, because I wrote to Bed Bath and Beyond and said, this employee of yours is excellent. We got great service. I would go to her every day for service. She was so good. So I do think that knowing that a lot of people complain when they call a store and speak to the manager, you get a lot more complaints. I always do try to give the good ones, because those ones are few and far between, I feel like.
Yeah, if you were to go onto my Google reviews page, I don't ever leave bad reviews on stuff on Google.
Yeah.
I only leave 5-star. Like if I have bad service somewhere, I won't leave a review. Because I know that's what most people do.
Yeah.
So I only leave good reviews. So when I go somewhere and it's like really good service, I make sure I go on Google and I give I don't do Yelp or anything. So I make sure I go on Google reviews and I give a good review on Google
Yeah.
for it. All right. Do you feel that your expectations align or diverge from the overall consumer population? And how do you feel like consumer sentiment has evolved over the past decade when it comes to service interactions? So do you think that you expect the same things that most people would expect? Or do you think other people are stricter, have more stricter expectations, or less?
I feel like I might be slightly lower than what people would expect, because I don't need a lot. It's nice when you get a little extra from people, but it's not a need. I don't need it. Some people think they deserve it when they go out to eat or they're at a store and no one says anything to them. Like some people are like, I walked through that whole store and no one said anything. Some people just need it and some people don't. And I think I'm one of those people that don't really need a lot. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, if I walk through a store and nobody says anything to me, like no employee, that's like heaven, because I pretty much, well, no, like I know what I want. I don't need help. I don't need somebody to like cater to my sense of entitlement. Like I'm just there to get the crap that I'm going to get, and then I'll leave. And if I need help, I'll ask for it. And, 99% of the time when I've asked an employee like, hey, can you point me in this direction? They always do very nicely. You know what I mean? So I've never really had like a bad, terrible experience like that.
Do you think it's a generational thing? Like, do you think that like our elders expect more, and do you think the people younger than us are like, don't talk to me, don't make eye contact? Do you think it's generational?
I definitely think it's generational. I think especially the younger generations like Gen Z, most of them, it seems to me, have like crippling social anxiety where they don't, and I empathize to a point. I don't like making phone calls. You know what I mean? Like I don't like talking on the phone. But I think like just like making basic eye contact with people is like, you can kind of see it with the younger generations where they, and I don't think it's that they're rude or unfriendly. I think it really is like anxiety, because most people live their lives socially online and not in the real world. So
Yeah, I see it in interviews a lot, actually.
yeah.
Just the people coming in, they're like, I don't want to say socially awkward. I don't want to call them awkward, but it's definitely they don't know how to make a little bit of chit chat in an interview. Like sometimes you need to do the small talk stuff in an interview, to show that you're friendly and approachable, and you know what I mean. But I definitely see it in the workforce right now for sure.
I definitely think consumer sentiment has shifted, but we'll talk about that more when we talk about tipping.
Yeah. I think as far as like retail stores too go, as far as like the older generation, I think a lot of them come from that time when they were going to like the local shops, the local A&W or the hardware store. And it was kind of like a social event for them when they would go out to their small town mom and pop shop. And they kind of carry that with them to this day. So they do expect some level of interaction with the employees when they go, which I suppose would make it harder for those younger employees that have that social anxiety. Of course, my experience now is kind of colored now that Shelley clued me into the fact that they're all following me into the bathroom on their break.
It's just the timing. I just know, like, back when I was at Target, like, they would start at either 4 or 6, and then you take your break 2 hours or 4 hours after you start. So, like, 8 o'clock, they come in at 6, they take their first break at between 8 and 8:15 or 8:15 and 8:30. So, and, what do you do on your break? You get a snack, you go to the bathroom, right? Like,
And tap dance, apparently.
and tap dance.
All right, tip culture. So there is an ongoing debate in society about tips. This is specific really to America because a lot of other countries, they include their gratuities in their bills. So this is kind of specific to America. And whether service workers should or should not be tipped. For example, you go to a sit-down restaurant versus when you go to like a quick service like a Panera or even a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts coffee shop, whatever. Versus, now there's robot bartenders in Vegas and they have tips. They give you the option to tip the robot bartender. So there's a growing sentiment in consumers that they don't feel any worker should be tipped, regardless of whatever the wage they make per hour is. And for reference, for people that don't know, in most cases, and especially in restaurants, like sit-down restaurants, tipped workers federally, they get less than $3 an hour. In Massachusetts, we just raised it a couple of years ago. I think they get like 5 and change per hour, but it's much, much, much lower than the standard minimum wage. So they rely on those tips really to live, right? And I'll talk about some of the arguments people make because there are some arguments that people make and they're not thinking about they're not seeing the big picture. But for you guys, what are your thoughts on who you think should and shouldn't be tipped? And do you have a tipping system when you go out to eat? And where? Dave, let's start with you.
Okay. I am a tipper. I usually do, like if it's a restaurant, flat 20%. And that's just kind of my standard. I don't think I've ever left less than that. I definitely get irritated where quick service places, they put out tip jars, right? A coffee shop is one thing. I don't mind. I'll throw in, if I buy a coffee, I usually throw $1 in the tip jar. When I go to Dutch Bros, I use my app to pay for it, but I have like an automatic tip of $1. And I only, and the thing I buy is usually like $3.75. So, but there have been some places I've walked in where it's like, they're not really doing a whole lot. Like, yes, they're standing behind the counter. They're taking like less than 5 seconds to give something to me, but they still have like the tip jar out there. And I'm trying to think of an example. There was one that just happened recently and I can't remember what it was, but I actually didn't leave a tip because I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I do think tip culture has become a little out of control. For instance, so to start restaurant, say my baseline is 20%, and I will go more if we sit for a while, so we're taking up that table, which is money again, because that waitress is making. When I was a waitress, it was $2.63 an hour. So for restaurant, I'm 20% or higher. Like, not even a question. Mike used to joke when we started dating. He was like, "Do you want me to just leave the card on the table and we can walk away and they can just swipe whenever they want?" Like, because I was like, "Well, we're gonna leave her a little more, right? Like, we're gonna leave her a little bit more. Leave her like an extra 10. Put an extra 10 on the table." He's like, "What is wrong?" And I'm like, "Because that's like she was really great. She came back. Blah blah whatever." When I am at a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks, I don't tip anymore because I don't think that person behind the counter is making $5 an hour.
No, they're not. They're making. In most cases, they're making like 15 an hour around
Between
here. Anyway.
15 to 20, because
Yeah.
when COVID hit and like the McDonald's workers, they were hiring people at $22 and $20 an hour. And when I go to McDonald's and they flip the iPad and it's like, leave me a tip, I'm like, no. I just,
No.
I don't know. And I always go back and forth because I always feel guilty hitting no. I do every time I hit skip or whatever. I do feel guilty. Yeah. What was I just going to say? I just totally lost my train of thought. But if you go to TD Garden, and I usually just get a fountain soda. Same thing. They flip the iPad and it's like, leave me a tip. I'm like,
You're paying $11.
same thing. Yeah.
Paying $11 for a
Yeah.
soda.
For
you
a
think I'm gonna leave you a
soda.
tip?
And it took you 5 seconds to push it. Same with you, Dave. 5 seconds. And I just can't. I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. But I will tip, like, my hairdresser. Always tip her 20%. Because that's a service I obviously can't do on my own. If I ever get gas, like a gas attendant does my gas for me at a gas station, I tip them, like $2 or $3. Delivery, if we get like pizza delivered, $2 or $3. I don't do a lot of DoorDash. I don't actually think I have ever ordered DoorDash, to be honest. So I don't know what I would do in that
Yeah,
situation.
DoorDash is a separate issue, and I can talk a little bit about that after. But,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm much similar. For restaurants, I'm not even baseline 20. I'm basically baseline 25%.
Okay.
Like, if you're giving me good, solid service, your baseline, you're going to get 25% from me. You have to be not very good for me to give you 20%. And I don't know that I've ever, at a sit-down restaurant, I don't know that I've ever left less than 20% unless it was really bad. Like,
Yeah, I
really
don't think I
bad.
have either.
But in most cases, they're getting at least 25%. If they're bringing me drinks, and the table drinks, and they're friendly, and I don't have to like, if I have to ask for drinks, they're probably still getting 25. If they keep coming around and I don't have to ask, I really love it when the waitresses are good and they keep their eye out for you and they see that you're low and they just bring it right to you without even asking. They're automatically getting like 30-35% tip from me. Like, that's that's like my baseline. Caitlin and I went out last night and we had like a good bartender and they got like 35% from me. So yeah. As far as like DoorDash goes, it's tough because customers feel like they're paying, and I see where the customers are coming from. They're paying these crazy service charges. They're paying more for the food than they would pay at the restaurant because the apps upcharge the food. And on top of that, they're paying a service charge, which DoorDash charges like anywhere from like $5 to $10 for a service fee. The driver
And that
doesn't
goes
get
to DoorDash?
goes to DoorDash. Does
that
not go to
money?
the driver.
Okay.
The driver gets like for here DoorDash we get a $2 base fee. So we make every delivery we get $2 plus whatever the customer tips.
Okay.
So customers think, oh, I paid a $10 fee. They must be getting that, so I won't tip. They'll get $10 for bringing it. No, we get $2 for bringing it to you. And if you live 10 miles away, I just drove for almost an hour,
Right.
45 minutes to bring you a thing. You didn't tip, and I only made $2. So we can see, we can't always see what the tip is, but we can see based on the amount if it's going to be worth it or not. So DoorDash is not very transparent in this state. In other states, they have to be because, like Colorado just passed a law, they have to show the driver all the information. They have to show them how much DoorDash is paying them and how much the customer is tipping them. In Massachusetts, they don't have to do that. So they hide the tip from us. We don't know what the customer is getting a tip from, what the customer's tipping. So we have to estimate. So if it's over $6, it could be more. If it's under $6, it's not going to be more. So a lot of times people they'll see like a 20-mile ride come in for like $5 and they're like, well, maybe there's going to be more of a tip at the end. No, there's not, because for whatever reason, the system doesn't hide the tip if the total bill is for the driver is under $6.
So they
That's what
tip
you see
ahead
is
of
what you get.
time.
Yes, it's more.
Okay.
Customers really should think delivery apps. They should think it more in terms of it being like a bid for service, because the driver is an independent contractor. We're not employed by DoorDash.
Mm-hmm.
We're not employed by the restaurant. We're self-employed. We're independent contractors. So really, what you're doing is people say, well, you should get a real job, and you should pay DoorDash to pay you more. No, they shouldn't, because I'm not employed by DoorDash. I'm not employed by Shipt. I'm self-employed. You're my client. So, like, my contract was with you, not with them. So, when I'm bringing you food, like, you're my customer. You're not the restaurant's customer anymore. You're not DoorDash's customer. You're my customer. And so the way I always give my delivery customers pretty good, solid service. And then on Shipt, I have like preferred customers, and they get like A plus service, because they're like my regulars. They know what to expect from me, and I have a good relationship with them. But you don't have that opportunity to build those relationships with customers on DoorDash. They don't give you that option. With DoorDash, from me, they're going to get a baseline good service. From other drivers, they're probably going to get, in most cases, not the greatest service, right? So, and that's the other reason they feel like, well, I don't want to tip that much, because I know I'm not going to get great service. They're probably going to steal my food, or they're going to take too long to get here, and so a lot of them won't tip. But if they think about it in terms of, I'm trying to get if you want your food to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, you should leave a pretty decent tip. It's a good bid. If a driver's going to see that the customer has a $10 tip versus a $2 tip, they're going to hustle a lot more for the $10 tip than they would for the $2 tip.
So it's like a little incentive.
It's an incentive, right? So if they don't see that incentive, and then so DoorDash is good, because one of the bad things about DoorDash is they don't show you the whole tip. One of the good things is they don't let people pull their tip away. Unlike Uber Eats. Uber Eats is notorious for letting customers, they have like up to an hour after they order to take their tip away. So what a lot of people do is they work the system, and they'll throw like a $15, $20 tip on there, so someone will take it, and then they instantly take that tip away.
Oh, that's crappy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
That's the game people play. They do that. They used to do that on Instacart too. Instacart kind of cracked down on that stuff, but I still think they can kind of do that. But Shipt is the only app I work where the customer tips after they always tip after they order. Mm-hmm. But Shipt gives a higher base pay for everything.
Oh, okay.
And their base pay is based on how much you shopped for at Target or Shaw's or wherever you shopped, and how far away they are from the store. So it's a little more fair in their pay structure to the driver. So if a customer stiffs you, it's painful, not quite as painful, because it might have taken me an hour and I made $18 if they didn't tip. But in most cases, they're going to tip. Shipt customers, for the most part, are pretty generous, but they also have high expectations of service, because Shipt is a lot more intense about who they take on. Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, what do you think of people that refuse to tip?
As far as delivery services go?
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Do those people actually like if it's an incentive, right? I'm sure there are there are people out there that just don't believe in tipping at all.
Yeah.
True.
So with delivery services, I'm sure there are people out there that are like, I'm not going to add. I'm already paying for the items, and I'm paying this service fee. I'm not going to add an extra tip, right? Especially if they don't realize what you just said, that the driver, the delivery person, is not employed by either of those entities. So do those people actually get their orders filled, or what happens there?
So an example of this is, there is someone that lives not too far from me that orders from Dunkin' Donuts down the street. So it's only like a mile and a half away. So it's not that far, in fairness, but she never tips. She lives around the corner down the street a little bit. I've brought her I bought her food once. It comes in as $2. It's 3.5 miles there, 1.5 miles back. It's a 3 mile round trip, so it's less than $1 a mile. But if I go and their Dunkin' Donuts is ready, I can get there and back and do it in less than 10 minutes. Still not great, but I did it once just because it came in, and I think my acceptance rate was low, and that's another discussion altogether. But I wanted to prop up my acceptance rate, so I took it. Of course, there's no tip. If you see something come in as $2, there's no tip on it. So I took it, and then she like 1-starred me. So the people that don't tip are also the people that usually like complain about service and 1-star a lot too, which they don't realize. I hope they don't realize. I hope they're not just being jerks about it. That they are actually kind of like, if your rating drops below a certain level, they can just deactivate you.
Oh.
So that's always a kick in the balls. But her order every morning comes in every morning at like 5:30, and it goes around to drivers. So if you reject it, which I rejected ever since then, I always reject it. And it goes around to all the drivers in the area, and then it comes back to you at a higher rate. And then everyone rejects it, and it comes back again. So I was one morning, I think I might have told you this story before, Michelle. I rejected her order at like 5:30 one morning. I rejected the order. I did some deliveries for like an hour and a half. Her order came in like 2 more times. So it came in at 2, then it came in at 3:50, then it came in at 4:50. Then like 2 hours later, I was getting ready to go do some laundry. I was taking a break to go do some laundry, and I still had my app on, and her order came in to me again at like $17. And you know that she's not tipping $15.
Yeah.
That got rejected so many times that they had to put that much money on it to make sure it got delivered. But in the meantime, she's waiting like 2.5 hours for her coffee. And all she's getting is a nice coffee.
So if I were to do DoorDash and I lived that close to, like, say Dunkin' Donuts was down the street and I didn't feel like walking to go, I mean literally
Okay,
down.
hold on. You guys live in Massachusetts. Dunkin' Donuts is always just down the street from where you live.
But I mean, like, it is like it would take me 1 minute to drive there and 1 minute back, right? So a 2-minute drive. If I was the person that was like, you know what, I'm sick, or like I am lazy today and don't want to go out of the house, it's cold, it's raining, whatever, and I ordered a coffee from that close, I will tell you that is when I would tip way higher, because that is for me pure laziness. I am paying, like I would pay someone to go get my coffee because that's how lazy I am in this moment. So I feel like someone like that should tip more, because you could easily go down the street yourself and get it, unless you're have some sort of injury or whatever that you can't physically do it. But yeah, that might be the only time where I would like actively tip way more than a normal like delivery, because
I did that once when I had COVID a couple years ago, and I just couldn't leave the house, but I had no food in the house, so I put in an Instacart order from like Albertsons, which you remember, Shell.
Yep.
It was like 3 seconds from my apartment, but I left like a $25 tip for the delivery person, and I told her, because I told her, I'm like, I have COVID. You can just leave it right outside the door and bang on my door. And she was really good. But yeah,
and it's a luxury service. So a lot of people say this is a luxury service. If you can't afford to tip, you can't afford to use the service, which is not, in my opinion, it's not necessarily true. I understand why people might not be able to tip, or they just might not tip. And a big part of it is the misunderstanding about how it works and what the driver's actually getting. And unfortunately, it is kind of a luxury service, but they're not getting luxury service all the time from drivers too.
Right.
So a lot of times their expectations are so low about what the driver is going to be that they're not going to tip very well.
So what about, like, what do you guys do? Say you order a pizza, right? And the delivery is coming from an employee at the pizza place. We're at, Pete's Pizza, right? We're going to order from Pete's Pizza.
Okay.
We order pizza, salad, whatever. It's $27 and change. There's an employee that physically works for Pete's Pizza. They deliver the pizza to your house. What are you tipping them?
$5.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah.
I usually do 20% of whatever my order is.
Regardless, really?
Regardless, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Because I just, if somebody's bringing something to my door, I just feel a little bit more compelled because it's like I'm being lazy. I could
Mm.
drag my ass out of the house and go pick it up myself. And I really should, I think. But if I'm going to make somebody else bring it to me, I just feel a little bit more compelled to tip higher.
Okay.
And
Would
those ones you absolutely should tip, but unlike a DoorDash, it's a restaurant that already has the delivery service.
yes, exactly.
And they're charging a service charge, and the driver is getting that service charge. So in a lot of
Oh,
cases, the
okay.
drivers, for example, I was a manager at Papagino's for years. Our delivery drivers, we paid them regular minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
plus they got at the time I think it was 55 cents per mile for deliveries.
Oh, so they got mileage.
so they got mileage and plus all their tips
Because they're
So-
taking their own car.
Yep.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yep. So they're getting the tip, they're getting the mileage, and they're getting their hour per hour pay. So sometimes they would get stiffed, but it doesn't hurt as bad because they are getting the mileage and they are getting the
Okay.
minimum wage pay too. So it's not like a waiter or a waitress that's getting less than $5 an hour. They're getting the full minimum wage plus their tips. Now I'm not sure now how that works. If Massachusetts, when the minimum wage started going up to like 15, I'm not sure
Right,
if they
things have
adjusted the
changed.
delivery driver's
Yeah.
wage. But I guarantee they're still probably getting like $10 to $12 an hour anyway as a driver.
Now, if you
Plus their
guys
mileage.
go to pick up, like you order takeout and you go to the restaurant to pick it up and take home, do you tip? And if so, what do you tip?
I usually do. If usually my standard for most cases is like 20% of
Really?
like whatever I bought. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they still got to prepare the food and stuff.
you're a
and
very good tipper.
My standard on takeout is like the same. They're not really serving you. They're bringing the bag to you and whatever. $5.
Yeah,
Well,
oh,
$5.
wow. See, I do like one or two because I feel like, yes, they're making sure the order is like correct in the bag. They give you your utensils, your ketchups, your napkins. So I do feel like they deserve something, but I'm not giving 20%.
So
I usually do like $1 or $2. That's my baseline is anywhere from 1 to 3, depending on what it is.
my reasoning for always tipping, or being a good tipper is because I think working with the public sucks. People suck. I honestly think that, and I really do believe like I want to do what I can to mitigate this person's what must be miserable existence right now, having to deal with customers over and over and over. Like I'm not trying to be funny. I think working with the public is a thankless job in the retail and service industry way too often. So part of me is like, I just want to do what I can to not be part of the problem.
That's nice.
Totally get that. How about when working as a waiter, waitress, service provider of some sort? When working in the industry, what were your expectations of yourself and your coworkers in terms of your duties to the employer and to the customers?
Well, as a manager, you have to think like the employer that you're working for. So each job that I've had in retail, they've always had focus on customer service, and like it was like every customer you see, you have to ask them, how you doing? Do you need help? Everyone. So if that person has walked the store, they have now been asked, they could have been asked 7 times by 7 different people, hey, how you doing? You need any help? And that's annoying. So I never pushed workers to ask, like, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? You need help? You need help? I just always was like, make eye contact. That's enough. That opens the door for me. Enough to make eye contact, smile, nod, and then they'll know, oh, hey, you know what? Can you get me in the direction of paper towels? And they will. Like, just be friendly and help when it's needed. Because at the same time, we all know in retail, you have a million other things to do. You have, end caps to set. You have push to get out of the back room. You got top stock to come down. I mean, there's a million things that go on. You're always understaffed in retail. The retail workers are, Dave's right, it is very thankless. Like, you don't need, I never made like a huge push on customer service. As long as when you are with a customer, you're nice and friendly and you actually help them. probably not the best manager, but I just think it's a balance when
Yeah.
you have, upper management who don't work in a store telling you have to have all this set by the end of the week, but like you're telling us to ask every single customer that comes in, what do you need help with? Well, do you want them to buy something that's on the shelf, or what do you want? What do you want to happen here? Like, I just think it's about finding the balance.
Part of that is stuff deterrence too, though, isn't it?
Some of it, yeah, some of it, but
How about you, Dave?
Well, I was never a server. My only job in the restaurant business was as a dishwasher.
Didn't you bust tables
So
though and stuff?
yeah, but I didn't like bring people anything. That wasn't part of my job duties. It was just, and actually when I worked at that restaurant, it wasn't the dishwashers that bust the tables. It was the servers that would bust the tables
Oh,
and
really?
clear them. And
Oh.
I would just go out into the area and check the two stations where they had the stuff that needed to be pulled back and washed.
because on the weekends
But
they did have bussers
I mean,
when we were there.
obviously, I mean, we know the restaurant, right? It was a family owned restaurant. It was very, a pretty small group of workers there. So even though I wasn't directly dealing with the customers, I saw what everybody else had to put up with, right? So that creates a certain camaraderie. But just seeing how some of the servers there got treated, especially by like regulars, I decided like I am never doing work like this again, ever. And I never have.
I was just gonna say you never did. Did you ever work in
Yeah.
retail either?
Nope.
Oh wow.
The closest was when I was in the military and I did postal duty for, what was it, 4 years?
Yeah.
But that's not quite the same thing.
Well, you're still dealing with the public though, right?
Oh yeah, and they would get nasty, trust me. But
Yeah, I
you know,
have.
then you have the further entitlement. Like the military has its own set of standards that you have to meet, that you're expected to meet. So when you add military expectations to customer service expectations, it's like on steroids. So when people get upset, they get super upset. But yeah. So I've been in a helping profession, right? I think my entire career, whether it was bussing tables or not bussing tables, but like washing, working in the restaurant, being a physical therapy assistant or now being a therapist, it's like always serving other people, which not my favorite, but for whatever, it's the path that I'm locked onto in this lifetime. So
Have you ever encountered a customer that you felt treated you unfairly? They were rude or harassing to you as a service worker? Shelley.
Yeah, I mean, in retail, the one that really comes to mind was there was a woman who had lost her debit card in the store. She was walking and dropped it. I was in the back room, and I heard her screaming at the electronics team member, screaming that I had to come out from the back room to find out what was going on. She was swearing at them. It wasn't for me. This is, someone else. Swearing at them, and the electronics guy was like, "I'm sorry, I haven't seen your card." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I looked, I helped you look, I don't see it, I'm really sorry." And so then I said, "Is there anything I can help you with?" And she was like, "I lost my card, and blah, they're not helping me," blah, going like freaking out. So I'm like, "Okay," and she starts to leave. So I'm like, I'm just gonna follow her and just make sure she leaves. So she walks past the fitting room. Anyone that was at the fitting room is like, "Oh my god!" Like they're like, "What is happening?" We get up to the service desk, and she calls this woman who was like a grandma. Like she was like the sweetest older lady. She called her an effing imbecile and was like, "You need to be fired." This, like, basically blaming the service desk person for losing her debit card, swearing at her. I said, "Ma'am, you need to go." I kicked her out of the store. I'm like, "You need to leave right now." So she left, and then she called and wanted to talk to the manager on duty. So the operator calls. They're like, "Michelle, that woman's on the phone. They want to talk to a manager." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Patch it through." Like, because I was manager on duty. I'm I'm like, send it on through. So I take it, and she's swearing at me, dropping like every other word was an F-bomb. She's like, I want to know what you're going to do. You need to fire her, and I want to know you're going to fire her. And I was like, ma'am, I'm not going to talk to you about that. And she's like, you need to tell me I'm your customer. You need to tell me that you're going to fire her, that something's going to be done. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you anything. Is there anything else you need? Because otherwise I'm going to end this call because you keep swearing at me. And she's like, this is effing ridiculous. And then she hung up. And I had her on speaker. So we were in the back office. I had taken it off the floor. And I had another my front end manager with me because I was like, I just want someone else as a witness to this conversation because this woman is cuckoo. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Poor, like, how dare she call someone an imbecile? Oh, I was so mad. I'll never forget that. I couldn't believe that she spoke to someone like that after you dropped your debit card. It was your own fault. What?
Yeah. Well, that kind of ties into the next question. If you witness someone being extremely disrespectful or inappropriate towards another service worker, would you step in? I guess I wrote this as in terms of not as a worker. If you were a customer in a place and you witnessed it, would you step in? David.
So I've stepped in the aftermath. So I was out with a group of people a couple years ago. We went to a restaurant. And to be fair, we had to wait a while for the food, right? But the place was like pretty busy. But one of the people in my group like went in to complain specifically about the server, even though it wasn't the server's fault. And I'm mortified when people do that. It just makes me really uncomfortable. But they went in, and basically the person came back and said, well, they're giving us all our meals for free. And we were a large group. There was like 15 of us. And I was like, okay, that's not right. Right. So I went in and I said, could I get a Pepsi, please? And the server got me a Pepsi, and I left her a $20 tip for getting me a Pepsi because the person, like, we're not leaving a tip. We're not leaving a tip. And they paid for our, they're not going to charge us. We're getting this all for free. And it was just mortifying to me. So I felt bad. So I went in, I ordered a Pepsi, and then I left a $20 tip because I'm like, this just doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I think I would have done something similar.
Then I went to use the restroom, and then as I was walking out, the server actually pulled me, caught me as I was leaving and just thanked me.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, going back to service and all that, what we expect. I do think that sometimes people blame the server when it is the kitchen. And I don't want to even say fault, but like there are places that are understaffed now. The people that show up to work, we have to give them the credit that's there. They're actually showing up to do this job. So instead of complaining, be thankful that there's even someone in the kitchen to cook your food and someone to bring your food out to you. I do think that waitstaff gets blamed a lot for things that are really out of their control. We didn't really touch upon that, but I do think that happens a lot.
Yes, it does.
I think there's a difference between being treated rudely by a service worker versus just complaining because things weren't exactly the way you as the customer thought they should be. Right? I think there's a huge difference there to my eyes. So with that said, I mean, I think, yeah, if somebody is openly rude to you or treating you like you're a problem when you're just showing up, like there was, when I was stationed in Virginia, there was a Dunkin' Donuts. And the very first day that I walked in to get a coffee, the woman that worked there was super mean to me. And I was like, I'd never walked in there before. And I'm like, what the hell? And every time I went to that Dunkin' Donuts, she would be super rude. And I was even with a coworker once, and she made it a point to smile and say hello to him, and then was rude to me. And I'm like, what is going on here? I don't even know this person. So in cases like that, that's one thing. But if I go in, I get a coffee and they made it wrong, right? Because they misunderstood or something, I'm not going to freak out about that. I'm just gonna be like, oh, I'm either going to just take the hit and walk out with it and do whatever. Or, I might be like, oh, I didn't order this. Can I, and even then I'll be like, I'm sorry if I like said something wrong, like miscommunicated what I wanted. Like,
Yes.
I don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, even then I try not to put it on them because I don't want somebody to spit in my coffee or my food or whatever.
Yeah. No, I remember when we were in South Carolina, we had gone to a Dunks and I had asked for a small iced coffee with oat milk. Now, if you've ever had that coffee, you know that it's very, very dark when you get it. It almost looks like there's nothing in it. And when they handed it to me, it literally looked like a cup of cream. And same thing. I was like, I am so, so, so sorry. I'm like, I can't drink, like, I can't drink dairy. I'm like, I really can't drink this. I'm so sorry. Can you remake it? And they're like, yeah, you said oat milk, right? I said, yeah, but I don't think that was oat milk. I think it might have been cream. I'm like, really sorry. And, oh my God. And even then they had to make it like 4 times. I don't know if something was labeled wrong or, yes, I don't know what happened, but we tipped like $5 even though they had to make it because we felt like, oh, they're trying to correct it, like let's tip them. Whereas I think in that most cases, most people would have been like, you messed up my coffee 4 times. I'm not leaving you anything. But I looked at it from the reverse of that, like they were really nice to try to get it right for me, you know. But yeah, it was like literally, it looked like a cup of cream. I have never had a coffee given to me like that before. Ooh. Yeah, yeah. But I do remember a long, long, long time ago, going back to Would You Step In? We didn't step in, but Mom and I had gone to McDonald's. This was like when I was in high school. And the manager was speaking to one of the workers so rudely, like yelling at her in front of the customers. And Mom and I like kept looking at each other, but we stayed, and then we would look again, and we would stay, because like I think it caught us off guard. And then we finally looked one more, and Mom was like, I think we should go. And I'm like, I think so too. I'm like, I don't like this. And so we walked out and we were like, that's right. We're not giving our money to this guy. Even, it's McDonald's, like they're not in any trouble. But yeah, we just we didn't think that the way that manager was speaking to that employee was professional at all. Like to do it and like right in front of the counter. I was shocked. I was like, wow, okay. So I that came to mind when you sent that question. I had forgot about that. But yeah, I was happy to remember that memory of, just us walking out.
And a little off topic, but I just realized I wasn't entirely honest about keeping my promise of I'm never going to do anything like that again. Because Hawaii and I talk a lot about opening a coffee shop when I get over there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
She's like, you can serve the coffee and I will count the money.
Smart girl.
It'll
Yeah.
be like the no nonsense coffee shop. Like, come in, get your order,
Well, the
get
thing
out.
is, Vietnam has like a pretty significant coffee culture, right? But they don't like drip coffee. They just don't do. So when I've gone and we've gone out for coffee, I'll be like, can I just get a coffee with like milk or cream, right? They don't like the idea of having hot coffee that has been brewed and dripped. They do like the specialty coffee drinks, like you can get a latte or whatever, but like just a regular drip coffee with some cream in it is like a foreign concept. So the last time I was there, we went to we were at the grocery store and I got some instant coffee because I'm like, I need like my, not that I drink instant, but I'm like, whatever. It was actually really good, but I showed her how I make it. And like, you put it's not all cream. Your oat milk story made me think of that because when I'm asked for that, it's like mostly like milk with like very little coffee in there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's the reverse of that.
Yes.
She was like, oh, but now I've turned her on to having her coffee like that. So she drinks. So I tell her, I'm like, I'm going to call it Western style coffee when we open our coffee shop. And maybe it will catch on.
It's going to be a game changer over there.
Yeah.
Or America is just going to be so hated all over the place, all over the world that it won't catch on.
Yeah, maybe don't call it that.
So I don't know if we're actually hated all over the world, but I guess that's a different topic.
Speaking of topics, Shelly, I think it's your turn next week. Have you given any thought to what you'd
I
like to do next
have.
week?
So
Okay.
I thought I would give you guys the option as well, like you gave to us last week. So we can do hot takes next week, play the game. It really would be just like conversation starters, honestly. We would just like rapid fire questions. Or we can do unpopular opinions.
Ooh.
Oh, I think we should do unpopular opinions.
That's what I was kind of leaning towards too. I think that would be a really fun one to do.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Okay, so we will.
My
do,
unpopular opinion, you already know one of them.
I know,
Cheesecake
but I'm sure.
sucks.
Or as you referred to it, can I swear? Am I allowed to
A
swear?
shit
You're allowed to.
sandwich? We're far enough into the podcast now that you can swear.
It looks like a congealed bird shit with blueberries put on top of it.
It does not. Oh my god. Yeah,
So
no,
we'll
I have some.
You can keep hot takes in the bag because I stole it from you last week.
Yeah, it'll
When
be
I
a
watched-
good like it'll
when
be
I
a good
watched
fallback.
The episode back. That's part of the reason I changed the topic. Because you were like, "Oh, I have this idea for one of my shows. I'll do hot takes." And I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we'll do that next week. And I'm like, "Oh, I just stole her idea."
it's fine. It's all good.
I was
All
like, I'm
right,
gonna
so
change
then
that.
yeah, unpopular opinions.
Unpopular
Get ready.
opinions, everybody. Catch us
Oh.
next week when we talk about some unpopular opinions. Maybe I'll really love one of us and really dislike one of us and be, I don't know,
Yeah, we might
indifferent to all of us.
we might get a little hate, but
Until then, don't follow me to the bathroom and have a great week, everybody.
bye.
Bye.
Sib Riv is produced by DS Entertainment Network and Dana Scott. Your hosts are David Scott, Dana Scott, and Michelle Zaborski. Our theme song is Alone Tonight by Ocean Drive, which can be found on CreatorMix.com. Be sure to check the description below for links to our social media, YouTube, and Spotify pages. The Sibling Rivalry Podcast uploads a new episode every Monday. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you can be made aware every time a new episode drops.
I'm pretty sure by this point, if I even stepped foot into a church, I would immediately be struck by lightning.
Dana always says that too. No, you would not.
No, I say I would burst into flames.
Oh, that's what you say. Yes. Yeah. How is it that I'm the girl and you two are so dramatic?
Why? Speaking of being dramatic, how come Dana's the only one that gets a rant of the week? It's time for Dave's That Guy of the Week. I am going to rant a little bit because everybody has to be special. Everybody has to be a special little snowflake. So now people are like, I'm an ambivert because I'm both. I'm an introvert and an extrovert. I'm an ambivert. But stop creating some special little category just for you. I'm an ambivert. I'm different than everybody because I can do both. It's like, oh my God. Fucking insufferable, man, I swear.
Oh, that's going to be a closer for this episode.